Hey everybody, Malcolm's here again with another installment of Profisee's MDM Bytes, which are short instructional how-to videos on MDM and governance best practices. Today we're going to talk about the 8 attributes of a good MDM strategy. Now, if you are thinking about embarking on an MDM program or thinking about developing an MDM strategy, you've absolutely come to the right place today. First thing you need to think about when it comes to an MDM strategy is, can you explain it very quickly to a senior business leader, right? Think about this, the proverbial kind of elevator pitch. If you had 30 seconds to explain to a CEO or a CEO, CFO about why you're doing what you're doing, could you do it in 30 seconds? Could you have a quick, succinct, very purpose-driven explanation as to why you are doing what you're doing from an MDM perspective? One good lens here, one helpful tool may be to look at things through the lens of what a product marketer would call a positioning statement. That's one example of kind of distilling down your strategy into 2 or 3 key sentences that you want your senior leaders to take away. So 1, can you explain your strategy very quickly? Number 2, does your MDM strategy reflect your business strategy? Right? If your business strategy is all about the customer experience, well then your MDM strategy should probably have some aspect of customer focus to it. That reflecting of the business strategy is very critical from an MDM perspective. And if you don't know what your business strategy is, go ask somebody. Chances are very good that senior leaders across your organization have a well-documented strategy when it comes to your entire business, and they would be happy to share that with you. Number 3, does your MDM strategy reflect the overall operating model of your business, right? If you have a very decentralized operating model when it comes to your overall business, right? If you have a lot of autonomy within business units or departments or divisions, then implementing some sort of very top-down, very centralized approach to MDM probably isn't going to work. So your overall operating model from a high-level business perspective and from an MDM strategy perspective, they need to be aligned. Does your MDM strategy include some notion of a governance strategy? So encapsulated within your MDM strategy should be some notion of a data and analytics governance framework. We'll talk about what a good governance framework looks like in a separate MDM Bytes video, but most certainly keep in mind that having some notion of what your governance approach is going to be will be a critical aspect of your MDM strategy. 5th, does your MDM strategy reflect your overall level of MDM and data governance maturity? Chances are you're relatively low from a maturity perspective, and as much as you would want your first car to be a Ferrari, I certainly did, chances are you don't have the maturity to be driving at that speed and to be applying some of the more advanced applications of MDM or more advanced technologies or more advanced forms of governance such as adaptive data governance. So your MDM strategy needs to account for your level of data and MDM maturity. And if you don't know where you are from a maturity perspective, there are a lot of good frameworks out there. I'll share one in a future video. Or consultants would happily do some sort of current state assessment of where you are from a maturity perspective. Another thing to think about here, number 6, is that your strategy should be iterative. You should take as agile an approach as possible. You should have a very specific roadmap of what you expect to deliver from an MDM perspective, but have that be delivered in very small bite-sized chunks, right? So your strategy should acknowledge a more iterative MVP type approach when it comes to MDM. Absolutely the best tool for making sure that you deliver value as quickly as possible from an MDM perspective. Keep things small and bite-sized chunks. Your strategy, number 7, your strategy should absolutely encompass some notion of your expected business outcomes. You don't need a very detailed, low-level business case just yet. You'll get there, and you will need to build one. But from a strategy perspective, you should have an idea of what sort of revenues you're trying to drive, what sort of costs you're trying to save, or what sort of risks you're trying to mitigate for your business. So having an idea of what you expect the business outcomes will be from an investment in MDM is a key aspect of your strategy. Lastly, the 8th thing to consider here is that a strategy is not a one and done. An MDM strategy is not a one and done. This is a living, breathing document that you should revisit over time. You should, on a regular basis, revisit the strategy and make sure that it reflects all those things that we were talking about before, that it adequately reflects your data and MDM maturity levels, that it reflects your business strategy, that it reflects your operating models. So absolutely keep in mind that MDM strategy should grow and evolve as your program grows and evolves. So those are the things you should be thinking about from an MDM perspective. I hope you got some value from this video, and I look forward to sharing more insights on another MDM Bytes video very soon. Thanks, guys.